engross ourselves in the words of the Torah. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asak b'nevei Torah. Please, Yehovah, make the Torah's words sweet in my mouth and in the mouth of all your people, the house of Israel. May we, your children, all of Israel, know your name and the name of your Messiah, Yeshua. And may we study your Torah simply because it is good. Blessed are you, Yehovah, who gave us the Torah of truth. And here's our medicine for today, dose number 1. We who live in the shelter of Elyon, who spend our nights in the shadow of Shaddai, who say to Adonai, our refuge, our fortress, our God in whom we trust. He will rescue us from the trap of the hunter and from the plague of calamities. He will cover us with his pinions, and under his wings we will find refuge. His truth is a shield and protection. We will not fear the terrors of night, or the arrow that flies by day, or the plague that roams in the dark, or the scourge that wreaks havoc at noon. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it won't come near us. Only keep our eyes open, and we will see how the wicked are punished. For we have made Adonai the Most High, who is our refuge, our dwelling place. No disaster will happen to us, no calamity will come near our tent, for he will order his angels to care for us and guard us wherever we go. They will carry us in their hands so that we won't trip on a stone. We will tread down lions and snakes, young lions and serpents we will trample underfoot. And Jehovah says, because he loves me, I will rescue him. Because he knows my name, I will protect him. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him when he is in trouble. I will extricate him and bring him honor. I will satisfy him with long life and show him my salvation. Very powerful. There's a lot of good stuff in there. One of the ones that jumps out at me right off the bat is the one where it says, he knows my name, right? So this is something that I share with a lot of people, and this actually isn't part of what I prepared for today, but it's just something that I share with a lot of people before we get into the lesson is knowing his name. What does that mean, right? You hear a lot of preachers out there, and you hear a lot of teachers out there that say God and this and God and that and God and God and God. And it's even in the Bible, right? But that's his title, right? That's his title. That's not his name. And so you have to know his name. And so this kind of ties into a little mental exercise that I've kind of prepared for us today, if you would humor me just for a moment. But his name is Yehovah, right? So a lot of people have heard platitudes and things, and people say stuff like, well, just call on his name. Just call on his name. There's power in it. There's healing in it. There's all these things. There's blessings in his name. And then you see these people like, saying, God, I need this, and God, heal that person, and God, and God, and God, right? But that's like standing out in your front yard and saying, dude, or bro. That's the one of today, right? That's not his name. His name is Yehovah. That's where the power is. That's where the healing is. That's where the blessings come from. Not from calling him a term of endearment or calling him by his title. He is our Abba, right? Just like, my folks are out here in the audience today, and my dad's name is Flavio. When he fills out his paperwork at the DMV, he doesn't put Pop in there or Dad, right? It's not his name. All right, so that's just something to kind of get your brain juices going here before we get into this. But I also want to share something with you, and maybe you've heard it before, and maybe you haven't, and maybe I just sound like a lunatic up here, but what shape is the Bible? Just answer that in your mind, right? A lot of people will say, well, it's a rectangle, right? It's got 4 sides, 4 corners. But let me propose something to you. The shape of the Bible is not necessarily a rectangle, not even a square. So I propose to you that it's actually like a sphere, 360 degrees, 3D, right? And we're going to get into a little bit of this into the lesson, but I wanted to exercise your thinking, put on your thinking caps for when we get into this, because it's a 3D model of him, his word, what he has for us. things that have happened in the past, the Old Testament, things that happened in the future, the New Testament, and how it even ties to us today. Because a lot of times people get hung up on words and things, and they get hung up on their own understanding of something, and you have a lot of biblical scholars out there who, that's great that you're a scholar, but like Pastor Jeff said 2 weeks ago, how's your relationship with him? I can read my dad's biography, and I can read everything he's done, and I can read every piece of paper he's ever filled out about himself, but do I know my dad? Do I have a relationship with him? Do I know that he doesn't like melty cheese? That's not on any paperwork, but I know that, right? Because I have a relationship with him, right? Just same thing with, with my mom. I have a relationship with my mom. I love my mom. Same thing with my wife. I love my wife. I have a relationship with her. I don't just know them or know of them, right? A lot of people get hung up on that. They know of God and they know who he is and what he does, and they read his word, but they don't have that relationship with him. They stay in the rectangle. They're not living in the sphere. Live in the sphere. Exist in there. That's where you will find your answers and your truth. After all, we're all on this journey together to find the truth, right? That's why we came today. That's why we keep coming. That's why we follow him and try and serve him and do the best that we can, because it's a journey, right? It's a race. And just like a race, we're not racing each other. We're racing ourselves, right? And he's not just in front of us. He's behind us, in front of us, to the left of us, to the right of us, over the top of us, and underneath us, providing all the support that we could possibly need to make it through this race. And it's not really a race with an end. It's a race that's just a big circle in the sphere of life, right? And it's not a race for distance, it's a race for time. And not necessarily time that we see it, but time that when he says, you're good. You achieved and accomplished everything I created you for. Come home. And hopefully, when you stand up before him, the list of good stuff you did is a lot bigger than the list of the other stuff you did. All right, so we did a little mental exercise, and I kind of got your brain juices flowing on something. Let's see, make sure this is on. Okay, I got laser. Here we go. So I titled this lesson Combat Readiness, and it's kind of funny how I got to that, because when Pastor Jeff actually asked me to speak today, I kind of immediately had something pop into my head, and then just like a lot of times in my life, my better half, who is my wife, was like, you're always talking about that. Do something different. And so I said, okay, so I spent... I don't even know, because I'm not really that good at math. I went to public school. But it was quite a few years in the Army, right? And so I know a lot of Army isms and a lot of Army stuff, and I'm still trying to wash some of it away. But I decided to speak on something called combat readiness. And I think that's more applicable today than it might have been in the past, right? Now, spoiler alert, if you read the back of the book, we win. So if you missed Chuck's message on Wednesday, he told a story about where he kind of messed up and spoiler alerted his dad on a football game. And then when his dad was watching the game that he recorded, since he already knew that the team won, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that was a great play. Well, all right, well, that wasn't so great, right? Well, here you go. Here's your spoiler alert. We win in the end, right? If you're a believer and you follow Torah and you are obedient, we win. So all we have to do now is just hang tight and watch the show. That's what I'm always telling my folks and Amy is we get so upset watching things on the news and what the politicians are doing and what's happening in the world. And yeah, you could invest a lot of emotion into it, but it's a waste of energy at the end of the day. You would better be served. Just make some popcorn and watch the show. We know what's coming. We know we win in the end. Just watch the show, right? And remain obedient. All right, so I kind of had this one titled as Combat Readiness, because that's something that was a huge push for me in the Army and the military, is always being ready, physically, tactically, mentally, and all this other stuff that they indoctrinate you with, being ready, right? But we're going to go through this, and we're going to see in His Word that he has already given us everything to be ready. We just got to put it on. We just got to do it, right? So in the Army, combat readiness, we talked about medical readiness, getting all your shots and making sure that your your knees work and your elbow works and your this works and all that good stuff, right? We do a lot of training, weapons training. We'll go to the ranges and make sure that you can still hit the target. That's important. And then we also talk about family readiness, making sure that your kids are ready for you to pop smoke and go overseas and do all this stuff, right? But today we're not talking about physical combat. And a couple of people, if you were here when we did Abraham's bar mitzvah and Yehuda's, one of the words of encouragement that I had for them was be ready to be attacked. Be ready to be attacked. And I'll tell you this, since Pastor Jeff asked me to speak on this, when I started putting this lesson plan together, the attack started coming. My water heater took a turn for the worst, right? So now I'm like, man, I take cold showers, right? Now, obviously, we don't do that, but I was able to figure out a way to make it work. But the attacks start coming. Started getting hives and stuff and all kinds of weird things happening. Well, that's just the devil. And we're going to talk about those fiery darts and how you can defend against them and then hopefully go on the offense as well. So in the first picture here, in the physical combat, you're going to want a guy that looks similar to this. I was going to put a picture of me up there, but I can't really find any that were appropriate for today. Usually I have giant guns or there's explosions and stuff, so some people are not ready for that. But this is just a picture I pulled right off the internet. That guy looks like he's ready to go in there, and if I was headed into a physical battle, I would want him either to my left or my right, or at least have my six, right? But I propose to you today that we have better warriors in this congregation for the battle that we're fighting today than the one I have up on the slideshow. Zeke, come on up here. And so here's one right here. All right, you got it? Go ahead and do it. Stand to this side just a little bit so they can see.
John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whomsoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life.
Thank you. So, Zeke, being as young and small as he is better equipped to fight the spiritual battle that we are fighting today, the one that's more important. Because even if, and this is in the scriptures, it says, don't fear him that can destroy the body, but him that can destroy the soul. That's forever, right? So when you go out with that weapon, you're far more prepared than that one, right? So it's not a spiritual battle that we're fighting, all right? So we have to compare and kind of contrast a little bit with the physical and the spiritual, which we're going to do in here. All right, so a lot like I was telling you how the Bible is not a rectangle, okay? It's more of like a sphere or a circle, if you will, like a 3D circle. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. What else do we know? You can't tell the beginning from the end. What else do we know about that? Just those particular vernaculars there is our Creator. He said He is the beginning. He is the end. Well, in a circle, I would challenge somebody to point where the beginning and the end are. You can't tell, right? Which the same thing is with Him, and that's going to tie into when we start talking about truth. All right. So a lot of things we'll see as well when you start getting into the scriptures and following Him and seeking Him, is there's a lot of things that physically happened in the Old Testament, and then there's a lot of things that mirror that spiritually in the New Testament, which is why you'll hear a lot of people say, and this goes into with the truth, you'll hear a lot of people say, well, we're not under the old law. Well, there's no such thing as the old law. There's only what God told us to do and not to do, right? And that's forever, because He says, I am the beginning and the end. And if He's the beginning and the end, how can He do away with Himself from the beginning and still be the end? Do you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of paradoxes that are created out there, and it's only to get you off track, right? Remember when I said a few minutes ago, we're all running this race, and it's not for distance, it's for time, right? And we don't even know what the time is, right? He'll tell us when it's over, right? But when you're running a race, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anybody, Jesse Owens or Usain Bolt or any of those people in the Olympics that run looking everywhere else except where they're going. So if we're running a race and we're trying to find Jehovah and we're following Yeshua and we're running like this because we want that new car or we're just believing something, you can't run a race like that. You'll fall, just like we fall in life when we take our eyes off of what we're supposed to be looking at, right? Okay, so we got the spoiler alert going on. And I'm telling you right now, especially even with what's going on in the world right now, we are in for the fight of our lives. And I don't mean our physical life. Just like Pastor Jeff said, even if they kill every last one of us, we still win. We still win. Joke's on them, right? All right, so what I'm going to cover today as far as combat readiness goes is putting on the armor that he has provided us, right? So, and we see in Ephesians, finally, grow powerful in union with the Lord, in union with his mighty strength. Use all the armor and weaponry that God provides so that you will be able to stand against deceptive tactics of the adversary. For we are not struggling against human beings, but against the rulers, authorities, and cosmic powers governing this darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. So take up every piece of war equipment God provides so that when the evil day comes, you will be able to resist. And when the battle is won, you will still be standing. Therefore stand, have the belt of truth buckled around your waist, put on righteousness for a breastplate, and wear on your feet the readiness that comes from the good news of shalom. And always carry the shield of trust, with which you will be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. And take the helmet of deliverance along with the sword given by the Spirit, that is the word of God. Okay, so there's a lot going on here when we start to examine it. But in the end, the whole point of it is to use everything that he has given us this far so that when the evil day comes, we'll still be standing. And it may not be on these earthly feet, because I'm sure a couple of y'all out there probably know this, but your feet hurt after a while standing on them. I'll tell you, after hiking around in Afghanistan for a couple years in Iraq with a big heavy backpack, I don't like to stand up too long, right, in my physical body. But this is talking about spiritual warfare. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but we're wrestling against all the evil powers out there that the fallen one has sent to try and steal us away from him. Okay? And so we have to be ready for all those attacks. Okay? So everyone that's received salvation or accepted it has been given a mighty weapon, and it's the weapon of light. Okay, I guess I put that slide in there twice because it's that important. Pay attention. Okay, so he gave us a weapon of light, right? Now, when you think about light, and I'm kind of a nerd, so I get into the science of things a little bit, right? But when you think about light, it destroys darkness. It chases it away. Darkness cannot exist in the same area as light. Think of a candle, right? Now, the only difference is how big is your light, right? Everybody remembers when we grew up in the little song, this little light of mine. Not me. I want to have a gigantic spotlight. Ginormous, right? Okay, when we think about light in the darkness and it destroys it, has anybody ever heard of darkness destroying light? It doesn't happen. Even the further away you go, it just gets a little smaller because you're farther away, but you can still see it. You can see that in the nighttime sky in the perfect creation that he made for us. When you look up and you're like, that's a star. Hey, guess how far away that star is, and you can still see it, right? Space, the darkness of space did not overcome it. It overcame the darkness, right? So a little bit of science for you. Okay, so the weapon of light, it's not a physical one. And all of us believers and followers of Yeshua's, we possess this weapon, right? In physical combat, I don't use my rifle to hammer a tent stake or open my MRE, right? It's not the right tool for the job. So what is the right job for this weapon of light? Okay? It's actually the Word. And we're going to tie this together in that 3D model of the Bible that we just talked about, His Word, okay? So what exactly is His Word? It's a manual for life. It's a manual for living, right? And then we even see later on in the Scriptures, and when it states that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And I think I got those last two mixed up there. But if it's Him, and it's the manual for us to live, we're literally just hanging on to our Father. He's our weapon. He's our weapon that we use. He's the instruction manual for us how to live, right? And that's where a lot of people get hung up, and this is kind of tying in with the truth. A lot of people get hung up on the truth. And what is it? And we look in and we're like, well, the Bible says this. And they go, well, the New Testament says that. All right, well, you're not in tune. How's your relationship? Are you just reading a book to read a book? Or are you having a relationship with your Creator, right? And I would say, which one's more important, right? So, in the Psalms, it says that His Word is a lamp and a light to our feet, right? Which is kind of parallel with the weapon of light, right? What does light do? It guides our path. It gives us a way to look around. It kind of helps us feel our way through things, right? But it's also our weapon, right? If you don't have light and you're stumbling around in the darkness, you might fall off a cliff, which could be bad. Could stub that little tiny toe on the nightstand, and that's usually even worse. I would rather fall off a cliff. At least it's overdone fast, right? You don't have to suffer for weeks. But it guides us while we seek Him, all right? And then in Revelation, when we look, and this is tying Old Testament to New Testament stuff, and Torah with Tanakh and all this stuff, because we're operating in this 3D model of the Bible, right? So then in Revelation, it talks about the rider on the white horse, and what's his name? His name is Word of God, right? And out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down nations. He will rule them with a staff of iron. It is He who treads the winepress from which flows the wine of the furious rage of Adonai, God of heaven's armies, right? So here we go. One, it's a tool for us to not wander around, but find our path and help guide us to Him. And then second, it's another tool, which actually is a weapon that we use to go out there and fight. Right? It's the only weapon that we really need in the spiritual realm, which is Him, which is still our guiding path, our guiding light, which is still our instruction of how to live. So everything starts tying together. Once you know how to live, once you have His Word in you and you're carrying it around with you, right? Whether it's on your phone or it's in your pocket or it's just up here or it's in here, right? You have the weapon that you need to go out there and fight. Fight off the attacks of the evil one, right? Okay, so with the sword, we've covered offense. All right, now, the enemy knows that he's going to lose, but not without a fight, right? And that's evident in today's world. We can see there's a lot of enemy activity out there. It's in Afghanistan, it's in the politics, it's in the financial areas of the world, it's in your front yard, it's in your backyard. It happens to you when you are trying to pray a lot of times. Even just something as simple as, Lord, thank you for today, and please help me walk the path that I'm supposed to walk today. And then all of a sudden, did you pay the electric bill? Did you pay your insurance bill? Because you know they're coming. Your phone starts ringing, and it's the spam calls. Hey, we just want to tell you about this extended warranty on your car. Really? Really? Right? So all these distractions, right? And these distractions are things that are attacking you to get you to look away from your path, right? Well, I would propose to you, and this is what I tell my kids, don't run with sharp things and not look where you're going. right? So if you're carrying the sword with you, don't be running around not looking where you're going. You might fall and hurt yourself, right? So when he does attack us, we have to be ready to defend ourselves, right? So as with any attack, we've got to be ready to either counterattack or just defend ourselves if it's not time for a counterattack just yet, okay? And you have to be able to understand that. All right, so the next piece of armament that God provides for us is the belt of truth. All right? So he tells us to stand and have the belt of truth buckled around our waist. Why a belt? Why not like one of those cool guy things that goes, diagonally this way and it's got all kinds of cool guy stuff on it, right? Well, when we look at what does a belt do in battle, and I wore one of these. So whenever I was deployed into those awesome areas in the world, a battle belt is what I wore, and it held my extra magazines with my bullets and stuff, and it held a lot of other utilitarian tools that I used and other weapons that I had available to me that I may have to use, right? But when we look at the parallel with it, okay, the function is to hold up your pants and hold up your other tools, and just like I talked about that. Now, in ancient times, the belt was used to hold a fighter's sword, right? He would have like a loop or some type of buckle or something there, and he'd slide his sword in it. We've all seen those crazy movies where they, sword fighting, and they pull it out and shing, makes that cool guy sound, right? But when we talk about this belt, it's a belt of truth, and we have to investigate what truth is. And in John, Yeshua tells us that he is the truth and the light. And so there you go. Now we're tying that 3D model together. You guys are seeing we're connecting all these different dots, and we don't know where the beginning and where the end is, which is great, right? So we have to understand also that when he is the truth and we put that truth around us, it is now the holder of all of our utilitarian tools. And so one of the utilities of truth is it gives us a standard to measure everything up against. So when you go out there and you start hearing stuff that people are telling you and you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound so good, put it up against your measurement of truth. Put it on the scale of truth and see if it measures out. So one thing I'll put out there is not to get too crazy or anything, but everybody's been hearing about medicines and stuff like that. Now, this is just a theory of mine. You can agree or you can disagree. It doesn't matter. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But when we look at medicine, pharmakia, right? We look at the history of it and everything. It started off way back in the day when they started doing all kinds of weird stuff with plants and things like that. Now, why did they do that? Why did they take something that God gave us, that Yehovah gave us, to remedy an ailment that we had, right? I'll take sassafras, right? Sassafras and aspirin. Both of them will give you a little bit of relief from a headache, right? Now, nothing in excess. If you take your doctor, you go to your doctor and you say, hey, how much aspirin can I actually take? He'll tell you, don't take too much because you burn your kidneys out and you might, cause some damage to your liver. You go to sassafras, right? And when it's cooked correctly and made correctly, it can provide that same relief for your headache, and there's not really side effects. Now, obviously, like I said, nothing in excess. Don't drink 10 gallons of it. Obviously, because it's like drinking Kool-Aid. You drink 10 gallons of Kool-Aid, you're going to suffer the consequences, which is why I would say this is why you have to weigh everything up against what the truth is, because the truth is when man puts his hands in things, he screws it up, right? Maybe not at first, but you're going to suffer some consequences, right? Because this all goes back to, and I'm going to kind of tie the end back to the beginning of our 3D model. But remember when the serpent told Eve, you shall not surely die, but you will become as gods. And he told her, you will be a god. So here here's another piece of truth, is when he told her that, she became her own God. Adam became his own God, and so on and so forth, all the way down the line. And so when you trace a lot of sin back to its original roots, which we just did, the first one, the root is selfishness. When you do things to please yourself, it causes you to go down these other paths, right? And you'd be like, well, murder is not really selfishness, is it? You didn't like somebody for some reason, or they did something that you didn't like, and now you're pleasing yourself by taking someone else's life, right? But theft falls right in there. You're unhappy with what you have already, and so you decided to take it upon yourself to take somebody else's stuff. Selfishness, right? What about hatred? A lot of people suffer with, not suffer, but they fill themselves with hatred. And that's a self-serving thing by itself. I don't like you for whatever reason. There's stupid reasons out there. A lot of dumb reasons. And it's only because it makes me feel better about myself to hate that person. Selfishness, self-serving, right? And so even when you look at when the disciples asked Yeshua, when they said, "What's the greatest commandment?" There was only one. Even though he stated two, there's only one, and it's love. The common word in both of those statements, right? So he gave us the tool, he gave us the weapon, he gave us the truth to continue to go forward. And that's all it is love. Because if you love somebody, you can't hate them. If you love somebody, you shouldn't steal from them, and you probably wouldn't, right? And if you love somebody, you're not going to, go and try and entice your neighbor's wife or any of the other things that Yeshua told us not to do if you love somebody, right? And so it's always important to remember what the truth is and what the standard is that we're supposed to measure everything that we are exposed to in our life, measure it against what he says in his word. And that's where you have to have that 3D model and start looking at what he told us. We're going to cover a little bit more of that in a minute. All right, so in Galatians, we see Shaul is asking the church, who has stopped you from following the truth? In our everyday life, we're faced with situations which we allow the world to define truth for us. We hear because these experts on TV, and I have a degree, but I don't have a degree, by the way, but I have a degree, and then we say, well, that guy's got to obviously know the truth. Okay, well, what does our Creator say in his world, in his word, and in the world that he created? Now, if you think about that, if I bought a generator from the company Caterpillar, say, I'm not going to take it back to a Honda dealer and be like, hey, it's not working right? You take it back to the manufacturer, right? So just like when we get told something about ourselves, about our world, about our life, we have to go back to the manufacturer and find out if that's true or how to fix it or why it's not working right, okay? And then again, we find this parallel where as soon as man starts touching things, we start messing it up, okay? And so you have to strip everything, strip all of the fanfare, all of the garbage that you pick up along the way, and the Navy people have some barnacles that they pick up in the ocean. You got to scrape all that out and get down to the bottom, to the bare metal, and see what it's made out of and what it should be made out of and what's wrong with it, right? Okay. So in our relationship with him, which he describes as a race, we don't need to look left, right, or behind us, but we have to keep our eyes on him. Who is the truth? Who is the light? Who is our sword, right? Don't run around with sharp things and your eyes closed, all right? When the Olympic, and we talked about, when you run the race, you keep your eyes straight ahead. And so that's why when Pastor Jeff says you can know God and you can know the Word, but until you have that relationship with him, you don't know anything, right? Because I don't think, and I have read quite a bit of it. I think I've read it, not front to back, but I think I've read read the Bible through and through, and I don't remember anywhere where you get brownie points for your knowledge. I don't think that's in there. But I think you get all your points when you get there, and he says, well done, good and faithful servant. These are all the things that you did for me. It's action, right? It's an action word, which we're going to talk about again here in a minute. Okay, so that kind of covers truth. We just found out that a lot of stuff is tied together with the belt of truth and what it does and what it is and why we should wear it around ourselves, right? Okay, the next piece of equipment, I guess I should have looked at my watch before I started. But the next piece of equipment is the breastplate. And then we ask ourselves, why a breastplate? Okay? And he says, therefore, stand, have the belt of truth buckled around your waist, and put on righteousness for a breastplate. Now, in the Army, we don't call them breastplates. We call them armor plates, right? We call them your chest protector, or we call them sappy plates. Some people call them bulletproof plates, but they go in your plate carrier, and it's a breastplate, right? The breastplate is what covers your vital organs in real life, your heart, your lungs, a lot of your liver. It's supposed to cover all the center mass stuff, right? The largest part of your body, what the enemy is going to be firing at, right? If you get shot in the toe, you'll probably survive. It won't feel good, but you'll probably survive. You get shot in the shoulder, you'll probably survive. Again, won't feel good, but you'll live, right? If you get shot in center mass, there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen here. Punctured lungs, you can hit the heart, you can hit your spinal cord, liver, bleed out, and all that bad stuff, right? But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a spiritual battle. But there's a lot of parallels here. Why he told us these things, because with our puny human brains, all we can understand is the things that we see, that are tactile, that we touch, that we use every day. Because if he told us, and put righteousness on your chest and cover, what's righteousness? How do I do that? Right? But he told us a breastplate of righteousness, and we're going to get into that. All right. So now in today's times, it kind of protects you against small arms fire, right? Little 9mm bullets. I'll attest that 7.62 will also not go through that, at least once anyway. So when we look at in the old times, the breastplate protected you from being slashed or stabbed with a sword, right? But it also had another function on it too that a lot of people, I think, may overlook. But a lot of breastplates, when you look in like some of the old books and stuff and stuff they've dug up, historians, it carried the standard of who you fought for. So if you were Roman, you probably had like Caesar's face or whatever on there, right? In today's world, there's even a parallel there. Now, it's a little smaller because, whatever, we're not trying to advertise too big. But on my plate carrier that I wore when I was in combat, it said U.S. Army. That was the standard of who I fought for and who I represented, right? So that kind of also ties into why you want to wear this breastplate of righteousness, because you're advertising who you're fighting for, who you represent. Who are you? Are you just somebody out there just swinging a sword, running with your eyes closed? Or do you have a purpose? Are you working towards a goal? Do you have somewhere where you're aiming at, right? Okay, so in the spiritual realm, the breastplate we're supposed to put on is comprised of righteousness. Well, how do we get righteousness? And the answer is it's given to us by being obedient and living the way that he tells us to. A lot of people get hung up and they start saying things like, the road to righteousness is hard. It's narrow, and it's really hard. No, it's not. He only asks one thing of us. That's it. One thing. Obedience. That's it. Obedience. And when you are obedient, things will fall into place for you. Now, I'm not saying that you will never be attacked. Matter of fact, you should hope that you're being attacked, because the more obedient that you are being, the more that the devil, the enemy, the Satan, the demons that he puts out there are going to attack you to try and distract you. So that way they can get you to run around with your eyes closed, not looking where you're going with a sharp sword of light, right? We don't do that. We just don't do that. We should not. But do we fall? Yes. Why? Because we are imperfect, right? We are suffering from that original sin of selfishness. And so that's where we have to catch ourselves each and every day, every second of every day, and say, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Father, please, Adonai, guide us. Guide us. Show us where we're supposed to go. Please put the little feet on the floor so that I can follow in those and look. Don't look left and don't look right, and make sure that I'm going in the right direction and that I'm following the right thing, right? Okay, so in Genesis 15:6, it says, he believed in Adonai, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Boop. Okay, so just by believing in him, you get a little bit of credit. That's it. You get a little bit of credit, right? Now, from that obedience and believing, you get more credit. The more obedient you are, you get more credit, right? So your breastplate gets bigger and bigger and thicker. So now you're able to fend off bigger attacks from the devil. Because it doesn't start off huge. He starts attacking you with little things, right? It could be, hey, you got a scratcher. You got a scratcher at the gas station. You won $10. You should go buy some more, right? Well, now what are you believing in? Are you believing in him? Are you believing in the creator, our manufacturer, our sword, our truth? Or are you believing in the scratcher at the gas station for providing for you? Just food for thought. Not saying anything bad about scratchers. It's kind of fun to scratch that stuff off. I don't know how they make it, but it's kind of fun. I would probably do a couple myself. But in Deuteronomy, we see it says, it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to obey all these mitzvot before Adonai our God, just as he ordered us to do. There's that word again, obey, and then we have mitzvot right after, or mikvah, right? And when we look at that, he gave us the mitzvot, and we're just, all we got to do is obey, right? It's not hard. It's not hard at all. And the reason they say that wide is the path to destruction is because it's easy to be obedient just as it's easy to be disobedient. Let me give you an example. He told us to gather together, and we've all heard Pastor Jeff, in a holy convocation, right? Well, how easy is it to also not gather together in a holy convocation and just say, I'll catch it later on YouTube. I'm tired. Or, I didn't get enough gel in my hair today. I'm just going to stay home so I don't look like a crazy person sitting in the pew, or, God, such a long drive and it's so hot. Gas is expensive. I'll just stay home, right? But it all begins with being obedient, right? And he tells us in his word that when we are obedient, he'll give us everything we need. He'll bless us beyond what we could possibly fathom. And you might see a lot of people get hung up on it because the first thing that you hear, or the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people when they hear blessing, is they hear money. Money, 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 money. Like God's going to make $100 bills rain on you when you walk outside. And he's going to say, here is my servant Josh. He is unblameable. $100 bills. That's not how that works. But I'll tell you how it works, and hope I get it right. But when you're obedient, he'll bless the things that you do. He'll bless the work of your hands. He'll bless the works of your heart. He'll bless the prayers that you send out. And so your shoes may last for 10 years. Your socks, like some of mine, are 10 years old. He will make your electric bill go down for no stupid reason. You just be like, you might get a letter in the mail that says, hey, the electric company loves you, and you've been a customer for 10 years. Please enjoy this $50 credit on your bill, right? Okay? It could be something else, too, like just completely unexplainable. I can't tell you how many times my wife and I sat down, and we do our budget, and we're just like, what in the world? When you put numbers to it, you're like, how are we making it? How are we able to buy $800 worth of groceries, $200 of it of which me and Amy consume, the kids, right? How is he able to stretch our dollar bills so far at the grocery store? I didn't get $1 million fall on me when I went outside. Nobody deposited $100,000 in my bank account, but somehow we're able to walk out of there with 4 or 5 carts of groceries. I'm exaggerating a little bit. 4 or 5 carts of groceries, and it lasts that long. So the blessings that we perceive when we're obedient, it becomes more clear what he actually does. And there's a reason that he tells us that money is the root of all evil, because money gives way to selfishness. What can I buy? How much can I make if I just put in another hour of overtime? You see what I'm saying? Okay, so when we take our eyes off of him and we put our eyes on money, or we put our eyes on things and stuff, then we're not being obedient. Then we're open to the attacks, right? And the attacks will come. And just like Chuck talked about on Wednesday night, if you missed, he talked about a show, I think it was, that he watched, where they were talking about how they refine gold and how they constantly will heat it up and put it in the fire until all the impurities rise to the top, and then they take the impurities off, and he knows when it's done, when he can see himself in the product, right? So we have to go through fire. We're going to get attacked. So if we know we're going to get attacked, shouldn't we be prepared? Shouldn't we be ready and put on all the kit and all the gear that our Creator gave us to protect us from those attacks? That way we can just stand out there and pew, pew, pew. You can't do nothing to me. Go ahead. Make my whole water heater break. I'll take a cold shower, and I'll praise God that I actually have water to take a shower. Get out of my house. Right? Okay. So we see also in Psalms, okay, so now we're talking about the middle of the book of his word, the sword, the light, everything, him. Adonai, who dispenses judgment to the peoples, judge me, Adonai, according to my righteousness and as my integrity deserves. Here comes that obedience thing again. How much integrity do you have? Is it measurable? You have to put it up against the truth to find out if it's measurable and what does it measure up to, right? And when he says, judge me according to my righteousness. Well, we got to look at the righteousness again. Okay, it says it'll be righteousness if we obey the mitzvah. So here we go. Here's that 3D model again of the Bible and his word, right? And I mean, we could get in a big, long conversation of like, okay, well, is it the King James or the Complete Jewish or the New American Standard or again, remember what I said. When man puts his hands on things, he messes it up. And this is why you not only have to have the words on the paper in the rectangle, but we also have that relationship, and we have to live inside that 3D model that he gave us. And we have to understand it. And that's how we have to seek him. It's not just knowing. Some of us that grew up in different churches, we said a magical little prayer when we were about this high, and we said, "Dear Jesus, come into my heart. I am a sinner, and save me." Hey, look at that. What? Now I'm going. I don't have to do anything else, right? That's my magic ticket, right? No, it's about relationship. Am I saying you can lose your righteousness and your salvation? You know what? Nobody actually knows the answer to that other than him. Right? But he does tell us to seek, seek first the kingdom, not seek first our overtime, and not seek first, God, I hope I get the Powerball. Right? Am I saying that God would never bless you through the lottery? No, I'm not saying that at all. That might be something that you just need. Who knows? Right? But you have to be careful of what you're seeking and why. Am I seeking that because it's going to be to the glory of him? Or am I seeking that because it'll be to the glory of me? Selfishness, disobedience. Those things will continue to trip you up, stumble you, throw you off onto the side, sideline you. You'll be running your race, and then you just pull over for that little cup of Gatorade, and everybody's passing you by. You're drinking your Gatorade. Hey, what's up? I don't want to be in first place. No, that's good. No, I want to run until I'm out of breath, and then I'm going to keep running some more. and the devil's going to just keep attacking me as I'm going. I'm just going to pew, pew, ricochets all over the place. Hopefully none of y'all get hit with them, right? Okay, so when we're obedient, righteousness helps to guard us from the attacks of the fallen one so he can't injure our heart, which is a vital organ. Okay? Quite a few people are only obedient when it's convenient or when it suits them. And that might be a good explanation of why we see some believers suffer more than others. What we perceive as suffering, right? You'll say like, man, I've been working my fingers to the bone, and my water heater broke, and my starter went out on my truck, and my shoes are falling apart. And then you look over and you're like, and my brother doesn't even go to church. He doesn't even do this. And why is he getting, and he found a $100 bill in the parking lot. What is going on, God? What? Hey, is your heart in the right place? Are you doing the things that you should be doing? If you are, and those things are happening to you, I applaud you because you're going the right direction. You're being attacked. Why are you being attacked? Because you're going the right direction. The devil keeps trying to attack you to get you off course so that he can bring you down some more, so that he can own you. Because remember, this is a fight for our life, right? Not this life, that one, the one that comes after when he tells us that the race is over, right? Okay, so there's not really a gray area with obedience either. You're either obedient or you're not. I'm sure if I was to give the microphone over to my dad, he could tell you, and my mom, especially my mom, she could tell you quite a few times that I was not obedient. I'll give you an example. I just put cookies in the cookie jar. Y'all stay out of them. All right. And 10 minutes later, here's young Josh trying to figure out how to open up this cookie jar without making a sound. I even went so far, I'll just kind of a silly story, but I went so far as to take a washcloth, like for the dishes, open the cookie jar. I could get that thing open with no sound. I was like a ninja, a cookie ninja. And then I get my cookies, put them in my mouth or set them aside or whatever because I knew I had to flee because I was doing something wrong, being disobedient. I would put that dish towel over the top of the cookie jar and then set the lid on top of it, and it didn't make a noise. But you know what? When you're disobedient, people know, especially when they have a relationship with the Creator. And I would hear this, are you getting in that cookie jar? I don't even know where it came from. She was probably watching me or something, secret spy camera. I'm not sure. But she, are you getting in that cookie jar? And I'll be like, oh, man. Yeah, I'll just put them back. It's just a test. Just a test. Right? But I was being disobedient. There's no gray area. You're either obedient or you're not. There's no in between. When he tells us to do something, he means to do it. And either you do it or you don't. Just like when he was given Moshe the law, a lot of people say the law, but it was the Torah. He was giving him the Torah. He didn't say, okay, thou shalt not kill ish, right? There's no gray area. He said, don't do that. He also said, remember the Sabbath. He didn't say, mostly remember the Sabbath when it's not going to interfere with your life or your other things that you want to do. He said, remember it and keep it holy. And you got to look into the Word to figure out what the rest of that means about keeping it holy. Right? But he gave us a specific instruction. He said, eat this, don't eat that. Do this, don't do that. If you touch a corpse, then you're unclean. Do this as a prescription to make sure that you are clean so you don't bring disease back into the community. It's the same thing here. If you are disobedient and you bring that back into the community, you're bringing germs back into the kahila. And you can't do that, right? Because that's called an infection, right? When you get germs in your body and it starts getting too much, then you got an infection. And a lot of people will see these churches that will come up and then they'll be there for a while and then poof, they're gone. Well, that church got an infection. And the pastor or whoever the leader is, the spiritual leader, didn't realize that he had people bringing in germs. He didn't get rid of it. He didn't cut it off. He didn't fix it. He didn't come up to that brother or that sister or that member and say, hey, you need to get yourself right. You need to be obedient. You need to fix this and don't bring it here. And one of the biggest things is what Pastor Jeff is actually teaching us on Wednesday nights about taming the tongue. Because it might not be like, oh, there's people committing adultery in the back room of the church. No, it starts right here. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Hey, I saw so-and-so doing this at the grocery store. Hey, last weekend when I was at the bar, I was just there to hand out tracts. Telling you, I was just here to give people the good word, and I saw brother and sister so-and-so in there, and they were drinking and hooting and hollering, and those are the germs that you're letting into the church, right? Okay, so go back to my notes. I get off on tangents sometimes. Okay, so the other thing is, and I kind of spoke about this a little bit, but when you have gear like that in the Army, it goes through checks. They inspect it, make sure it's good, make sure I'm not giving you a bulletproof vest that already has holes in it. That's not going to work, right? Okay, so just like that, we have to make sure and check our righteousness every once in a while, at least. Should kind of be like a daily thing. But check it every once in a while and make sure that it's all there. Make sure that there's not something that you have to find and get rid of to make sure that you don't have any holes in your bulletproof vest, right? And so we do that. And if we look at our 3D version of the Bible, we can look at like when the Pharisees were trying to trick Yeshua by asking him if they should pay taxes. And what did he say to them? He said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. He asked them whose face was on the coin too, right? Whose face is on it? Oh, Caesar's. Give it to him then. It's his. Right? And so when we look at being obedient, following the mitzvah, making sure that we build up our righteousness enough to protect us, making sure that we're walking around with our sword of light and we're going down the right path, when we look at that, in that time, and we look at our 3D model, but in that moment in time, physical time, the Pharisees heard, well, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Now, I propose to you within the 3D model of the Bible, which encompasses not only length, width, height, depth, but also time. He was also telling the generations to come to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. What does that mean? It means the things of this world belong to this world. Leave it here. Don't waste precious time, which is a commodity that no one here has the ability to create more of. Don't waste your time on the things of this world, which kind of ties back to what I was saying earlier about when Amy and I would watch the news and we would get upset, and then the Ruach HaKodesh was like, don't get upset about that. All these things are being orchestrated by the Creator. We got to remember to weigh it against the truth. He said, nothing happens in this world that he didn't already plan and already know. You can't surprise him. Just like when the devil and God was talking and they said, have you considered Job? Was it a gamble? Well, we know that God doesn't gamble. He doesn't play the old quarter machine, one-arm bandits. He doesn't buy scratchers at the gas station or Powerball tickets. But we know that he already knew what the outcome was going to be, so it wasn't even a gamble. What he was doing was proving something that he already knew to somebody who didn't even know it. Right? Okay, now, just like Yeshua was referring to money and taxes in those times, today he's telling us to leave the things of this world in this world. Now, I'm not telling you to go out tomorrow and quit your job and tell your boss to, eat Cheez-Its or whatever. Okay, we do still have to buy groceries and things like that. Would God make manna come from the heaven? I don't know. I've never tasted it. I hope it goes good with salsa. But we still have to take care of our responsibilities. As a husband, as a father, my responsibilities are to my family. Not just to provide food and shelter and all those things, but also to provide spiritual leadership, to provide an environment where they can have that relationship with the Creator, to be an example for them. Am I a perfect example? No. My kids will be the first ones to tell you that. I jump out from behind doors and scare them and, things like that. And they've seen me lose my temper. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. But aren't we all? But you have to check your gear. You have to constantly be weighing things up against what this says, right? You have to be ready to fend off those attacks and defend yourself when the dark one comes for you. And he will. And when you lose the little battles, it's easy for him because you lost the little battles. But when you win those little battles, when you graduate to the next step and your armor gets a little thicker and your sword gets a little sharper, and you graduate to the next step and you get thicker armor and a sharper sword, and maybe the sword grows bigger. I don't know what it is. The light gets brighter. Who knows, right? The attacks have to be bigger. They got to be more violent in order to be successful. Right? And so we have to make sure we check our gear all the time so that his attacks are unsuccessful. Because if he is successful, that means that we're losing. But if he's constantly attacking us with bigger things and more violent things and crazy stuff that you would not even think of, that means you're going in the right direction. That means your gear is ready for it, and it's a test, and you've got to pass the test, right? All right, so I think we kind of spoke on that a little bit longer than I intended to, but that's okay. So the next thing that he talks about is shoes, right? Shoes protect your feet when you go down the road. Unless you live in my house, then Zeke never wears shoes. He just leaves them on the road, and then I got to bring them in before it rains. But the shoes that I wore, like over in Afghanistan, they would protect me when I would go on these long walks up in the mountains or down the roads, or we'd go on dismount missions all the time. If I didn't wear my combat boots, holy moly, my feet probably would have looked like hamburger meat. Right? But what kind of shoes do you wear, and where do you let your feet take you? That's the things, right? If I ever only plan on tiptoeing through the tulips, I probably might just wear some flippy floppies, right? That would probably be enough. Right? But are we going tiptoeing through the tulips as believers? No, we just talked about how the attacks, when you are righteous and you are checking your gear and you are doing the right thing, the attacks will become greater, they will become stronger and more frequent. And so do you want to be wearing flip-flops when the devil is shooting hot lava at you? No. You need to wear appropriate footwear, right? So when we look into it, In Ephesians, he tells us to wear the readiness that comes from the good news of shalom. And that's from the Complete Jewish Bible. And then in the King James Version, he tells us to shod our feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, right? And those are a couple of key words that kind of cue us in how we put on this piece of armament. If we know the good news, we win in the end. Spoiler alert. Then what can we put on our feet? Peace. We can put peace. We can be prepared for peace because it's coming, whether you want to or not. The old devil's working hard to try and make God's clock speed up and mess up his plans, but guess what? He can't. I would challenge anybody to show one instance where it said, and the devil spoke and created this. Well, he didn't, because his words don't matter. You know who's do? Our Creator, Jehovah. Those are the words that matter. Those are the sword. That's the light. That's the truth. It's all coming together. All these pieces of armament that he gave us are now starting to connect, okay, in the 3D model of the Bible. All right? Now we see in Romans 10 that how can people proclaim him unless God sends them? And as the Tanakh puts it, how beautiful are the feet of those announcing good news about good things. Well, everything's starting to tie together now, right? Okay, so our feet are a very important part of us, and if you don't think so, just try to use them or not use them for a day. If you don't think your feet are important, then try to not use them for a day, right? Now, I get it. There are people who are born without limbs, and there are people who lost the use of their feet. But I would almost willing to bet you a dime to a dollar if you walked up to somebody who lost their feet and said, hey, I know this guy, and he can fix you. Do you want him back? They'd probably be like, yeah, I'd kind of like to have my feet back. I would like to spend some money on some shoes that last 10 years because I'm righteous. Right? So our feet are what take us down the path that Jehovah has put before us. And it's an easy path, like I said, with only one requirement, obedience, right? And throughout our journey, we're supposed to be ready and prepared for what he tells us that we should do or what he tells us to do. Now, it might be a divine appointment, which I don't know how you all feel about that. I believe in divine appointments. And I'll tell you one that just recently happened to me. The job that I do sent me to a place called Alaska. Now, who would have ever thought a guy that grew up in Roswell, New Mexico, where the aliens landed, would be in Alaska, right, where the moose and the bear are? And I was asking myself when I got off the plane there, because I wasn't quite knowing what to expect. I'd never been to Alaska before, but I was like, God, why did you bring me to Alaska? Why did a guy like me get to go to Alaska? The only time that I've ever traveled to like crazy exotic places was in uniform to go and do war, right? And so I was in Alaska, and I was supposed to just observe some training. Well, that's crazy. They're paying me to go just watch people train. I used to be that guy that was doing the training, just living life in the dirt and not showering and eating mud and all kinds of good stuff like that, right? And I was like, God, why'd you bring me to Alaska? And then we had a day where there was no training, so I said, well, while I'm here, I might as well go ahead and get a couple souvenirs for the kids because they've never been to Alaska. Amy's never been to Alaska. My folks never been to Alaska. So I went out souvenir hunting, and I ran into two people on my way back to the car. And this guy had a sign up, and he was, protesting some things. And at the bottom of his sign, it said, God, Jesus loves you. There's good news. And so, I said, hey, man, God bless you too. And he was like, did you hear the good news? And I said, well, yeah, I got the good news right here. And we had about a 3-hour conversation in the middle of the city there. And it turns out that and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody out there, but it turns out that the congregation that they were a part of could no longer take them any further because it didn't have the spiritual nutrition that they were desiring. I opened my mouth one time and said, Yahovah, and the guy that I was talking to, he said that he had chills run down his spine. And I said, okay, well, that could be because you don't actually know his name. What a great tool that the devil uses is deception, right? What a good tool to tell you your whole life something that is untrue. Remember in the beginning when I said you can't go out and call on his name in your front yard like this, dude. I need dude stuff, dude. No, you call on his name, and his name is Jehovah, right? And this even goes back to if you look into a lot of the history, some of the rabbis and the real high ups and stuff like that. When you get into the Catholic Church and things like that, they took Jehovah's name out of there, and they replaced it with his title. They replaced it with his title. Well, who else bears those titles, right? Beelzebub, things like that. People put that title on a lot of stuff, right? If I was to tell you a president, right? Well, you don't know if I'm talking about Nixon or Trump or George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or anybody like that, right? Same thing with God. It's a title. It's not his name, right? So when I spoke his name, that dude felt a little bit of power, just enough to get him, And maybe that was the Ruach HaKodesh, like jumping in his body and going, there's more out there. Right? Okay, so we have to make sure that we're in constant contact with him so that we know what he wants us to do. It may be a divine appointment or just the mission field, like we just had the Justine family come through here, right? And now they're going back to Thailand. So you've always got to be plugged into that relationship with him and listening. Sometimes we like to talk too much and we don't do enough of this. He gave us 2 of these and only 1 of these, right? So that we know where he tells us to go and what to do. Now, I didn't tell my work, I don't know if I want to go to Alaska. But how many times have we ran into an incident in our life where we knew somebody was looking for the truth and we said, my mom told me not to talk to strangers. She told me not to talk to, so I don't know that person, but I'm not going to go talk to him. And you walk away. You let your feet walk away, right? But if we're tuned in and we're listening to the Spirit and we see that person or we run into that person in the middle of Alaska and they're looking for the truth and you just happen to have it, and you know it, and you're running with it with both eyes open, eyes on the prize, and you got the truth tied around your waist, and they're like, hey, what's the truth? And you're like, oh, bow! That's the truth. His name is the truth. I talked with him for 3 hours. I have no idea who these 2 people are. No idea. But I love them now. I mean, I even called Pastor Jeff a little later. Now, Alaska is like... I think it was like 4.5 or 5 hours behind us or something like that. So I think when I called Pastor Jeff, I think it was like 11 at night or maybe 10. I can't remember. Like I said, I went to public school. But anyway, I called him and I was like, Pastor Jeff, I ran into some people in Alaska looking for the truth. I gave them your number. So if you get a call, like, I don't know, in a couple of hours, people looking for the truth, it was me. Sorry about that. But God doesn't have a timeline that he works on. His business hours are not, 9 to 5, right? And so I even was so excited I called my folks and I was like, hey, I know why God sent me to Alaska. And they're like, why? I thought you were there to just observe training. Well, apparently I was there to help expose some people to what I call the truth, right? And they were just so hungry, everything I was doing, and here I am, I'm literally wearing shorts and a T-shirt in Alaska, and I look like a goober because everybody else is wearing like pants and Alaska stuff. And I'm talking to these people just like straight up, poof, right off the top of my head stuff because I had it wrapped around me, my belt, right? And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back because if I reach too far, I might throw my shoulder out. But when you have it in you, it just starts to come out. And Pastor Jeff has said that multiple times. What you fill yourself up with is what will eventually start coming out. That hurt me when he said that. I swear to you, every time Pastor Jeff talks, I should just go ahead and take my shoes off and put my toes out. That way he can just dance on my toes the whole time because everything he says, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. For too many years, I filled myself up with things that I should not have been. And it came out. It came out. It's just like I told my sister when she was in a relationship with a young man. And, as the older brother, it is my responsibility to threaten people that may be trying to hurt my sister in her heart. Right? And I told him, I told my sister, a guy can behave himself for an hour or two. But it's when you get him in there, when you get him outside that perfect element, you find out what their true colors are. And that's where I come in. Because I'll threaten him after that hour or two. You hurt my sister, it's going to cost you. And I'm expensive. So we have to kind of keep those things in mind, right? Where are my feet taking me? What am I wearing on my feet? Because if I would have just been walking through Alaska with flip-flops on and seen his sign that said that, I might have walked the other way. Even though I agreed with what was on his sign, I might have walked the other way. Because I didn't have enough equipment. I didn't check it. I didn't build it up good enough to go and talk to somebody. I don't know these people, but I love them. I hope they're watching. I gave them the app to download and everything. Gave them Pastor Jeff's number and his email address. I didn't give them your physical address, though, so I don't know. They were still strangers at that time to me, but anyway, we have to be careful where our feet are taking us, and we have to understand when we put readiness and preparation on our feet, what does that mean? It means to be ready when the Creator tells us, go do this, we go do it. We see a couple of examples of that in the Bible when he told when he told Jonah to go and do something. Jonah was like, I don't know. You got ate by a fish. Really? Okay. There, we got to point it in the right direction. That's my weapon, my laser weapon. Boop. All right. So the next thing that we see as a tool is faith. Okay, the shield of trust or faith. It calls it in two different translations. It calls it something a little bit different, but we're going to see that it doesn't really matter what it is. But when we talk about the shield of trust or faith, it's kind of the same thing, right? Trust, you don't actually know what the outcome is going to be. Faith, you don't actually know what the outcome is supposed to be, but we kind of go into it a little bit blind. And I know I'm going to go over a little bit. Zeke, you can talk to me later, right? But where is your faith, and who do you put your trust in? Do you put it in Jehovah? Do you put it in yourself? Do you put it in money? I'll give you a couple of examples, right? When you put it in yourself, you say, I can do this, I can do that, I, me, my, right? When you put it in money, if I could just work another hour of overtime, 2 hours of overtime, if I could just win the Powerball, if I could just win that scratcher, if I could just, you're putting your faith in the wrong place. And when you put it in Jehovah, you wake up and you go, what a beautiful creation this is that you gave us to look at. A lot of people see me as a big tough guy. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But I like to sit on my front porch and watch the hummingbirds come to the feeders. They're the most amazing things. I love little birds. And, the squirrels, they keep emptying my bird seed, but I like to watch them. I like to see them. That's awesome. That's amazing. I was even talking to my dad the other day, like, should I build some hummingbird houses out there? Because, it's raining, and how many hummingbirds are out there, you think? Probably like at least more than 2 or 6, like at my house. Where do they make their nest? In the tree. Where does it rain? In the tree. Who watches over them? Jehovah. He made them that way, And so you got to ask yourself, where's your trust? Where's your faith, right? In Ephesians, there's another one. I forgot to put that one in there. Do you trust in man? Now, I'm not saying if you fall off your I know some of y'all have some big Harley Davidsons out there, and if you fall off your bike and break your arm, I'm not saying go home and it'll probably heal itself up by the morning. Definitely go get an X-ray. If you need a cast, get a cast, right? But do we put our hope in man? A lot of times we do. I really hope they fix the economy. I really hope they come up with a cure for this disease. Want to know why they've never cured cancer? Because cancer eats you from the inside out. Want to know why some vaccinations don't work? Because they're not what he intended for us to put inside our bodies. Want to know why the Doritos taste so good? It's not made with real stuff. It begs to the flesh. There's this thing in there called monosodium glutamate, and you want more, and you want more, and you want more, and you want more, and then that's not good enough, so you got to crack open a Dr. Pepper, and then you want more because it tastes good. You're trusting in man to fulfill you, to feed you, to nourish you. And we're not putting our trust in the right spot, right? So you can see the two different translations up there. It calls it trust or faith, right? And then the second part of that, it talks about extinguishing the fiery darts or the flaming arrows of the evil one. Those are the attacks. And the better your armor is, the bigger those arrows are going to be. Man, I hope I get to the point where I can take like a flaming cannonball to the chest and just boo, bounce that dude right off. Right? Because that means that my relationship is probably as good as it's going to get with the Creator. I'm not saying I'll have all the answers, but by God, I'll be ready to fend off some attacks of the devil. Right? I won't be here at the starting line still. Hopefully, I'll be in full stride. I don't even know where the finish line is, but I'm going to keep running. I'm going to keep running with my eyes open. Right? Then in Genesis 15:1, we see back in the beginning, right? Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Avram in a vision. Don't be afraid. I am your protector. Your reward will be very, and I kind of cut it off there, but he tells him that he is his protector, that the Creator is our protector. Are we seeing the tie-in to all this stuff? Are we seeing that he's our weapon, he's our protector, he's our truth? All right? Okay. So, when you put your faith in the things that are not of him, you will not gain any spiritual nutrition from it. All right? And I'll kind of go over that because I probably am going to go a little bit over, but I told Zeke I was going to talk for at least 3 hours. So our answer should always be to keep our faith and our trust in him for everything. Everything. And it doesn't matter what it is. Relationships, finances. I prayed over my water heater, and God gave me a way to still have hot water so I can take a hot shower, mostly hot shower, right? Amy prays over her garden. We pray over our dogs. Like, oh, please, he's getting kind of old. Give us a little bit more time with him. Right? We pray over our kids. We pray over everybody. We pray. We just pray. Sometimes I just pray. Sometimes I don't even pray. I just talk to him like he's standing right next to me. Because you know what? He is. He's right next to you. Right? I heard somebody, it was a teaching where he said, they were like, how do we keep from, doing the things that we want? Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of the devil. And he says, when you live your life, live like your neighbor's watching you. Like your neighbor is watching you. Right? And they said, why our neighbor? Well, because you wouldn't do certain things if your neighbor was watching you, right? But what do? Yeshua's watching us all the time. He's right here. You didn't see that. He saw you falling asleep, Zeke. You better wake up. I'm just kidding. Messing with you, right? But he sees us all the time, but does that stop us? Does that stop us from looking at websites we shouldn't be looking at, saying things with our mouth we shouldn't be saying, thinking things with our mind that we shouldn't be thinking? Putting our trust in places it shouldn't be, right? So you got to always know that the answer is to go to him for everything. That's where our faith is. That's where our trust should always lie, is with him. When the water heater breaks and you call the plumber and he's like, it's going to be $7,000 to replace that water heater because it's a super special one and they only make it on the third continent over, whatever it is. I don't put my trust in me. I don't call my work and be like, can you please work me for another 400 hours between now and next Wednesday so I can pay for this water heater? No. I went down there and I said, Lord, I believe in you. I trust you. I try to follow you the best that I can. I just ask for your favor in this situation. And if that's not the time, that's not the time. But he's watching over us. And we don't even know why these things happen to us sometimes. Maybe the water heater busted on me because he's preparing me for a time when there won't be one that I can replace it with, because it is a different one that, without getting into, sidetrack conversations, but it's not a normal one. I can't just put one from Home Depot in there and it'll work. Maybe he's like, hey, right now, I've given you the tools, the finances, the know-how to know what's wrong, why it's wrong. I also put one over here in this warehouse just for you. So when yours breaks, you can order it, and they'll come and put it in for you. You're welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Father. That was my answer. Right? So we put our faith in him for everything. It doesn't matter what it is. right? And he protects us, and he's our weapon, and he's our truth. So we literally just have to put on this gear, and it does everything almost for us. All we have to do is be what? Be obedient. That's it. Pretty easy, right? Okay. I think this is the last one, right? And then we'll go eat some delicious victuals, right? So protecting our mind. The last piece that I'll talk about is the helmet, okay? So when we look at the helmet of salvation or deliverance, it's hard to miss the fact that it's a piece that protects our minds, right? In real life, the helmet protects my brain, which is what controls a lot of stuff that happens in my body, so on and so forth. But in the spiritual realm, it protects our mind, which is what does the communication with our Creator to find out what's wrong with us and how we can fix it. All right? Now, in it, we have stored our memory verses, our thoughts, our prayers, lots of stuff like that is up here. So it would make sense that we need to definitely protect our mind against attacks from the devil. Like, say, I don't know, evil little thoughts that are like when you see somebody you don't like, and you're like, man, I wish they would just fall down the stairs or something, you know. I had to correct myself, and then I even had to correct my kids, because we would see some, we'll just call it politician on TV and be like, why can't that guy fall down the stairs? Like, come on, man. And I had to say, you know what? That's the wrong thing. That's the thoughts. That's me taking my helmet off and letting an attack come in. And I need to put my helmet back on. And instead of saying, why can't that guy fall down the stairs, say something like, I'm going to pray for that guy. Because in the end, when he's standing in front of the throne to be judged, I don't want to be anywhere near that. I pray for them. Please, Lord, have mercy on them. And I'm not saying that because I'm so great, because I know, Lord knows I've done some stuff in my life that I'm kind of afraid to face in the end. But what happens when you have somebody that's completely lost serving the wrong person on not even on the same track as us, right? I feel bad for them. I just pray for them. I don't hope anything bad happens to them, but I hope that the Creator has mercy on them for what they've done. And that doesn't have to be just politicians. It could be anybody. Anybody. It could be that guy that almost ran me off the road yesterday. I hope he made it home safely. Woo. I think that's the second time I've used my horn in my truck ever. All right? Did you get a boat? I didn't know you had a boat. All right, so think of it this way. He is our salvation, right? And we see that when we go to Psalms. Let's see if I got it up there. I don't know if I put it on there. Nope, I didn't. Anyway, we see it in Psalms 62:2 and 62:6, where it says, He alone is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I won't be greatly moved. It says it again. It's so important. 4 verses later, He alone is my rock and salvation, my stronghold. I won't be moved. Right? When we put our trust and our faith in Him, and He brings us deliverance and salvation, we won't be moved at all. We'll stay on that track. Right? Okay. Let's see. The goal of the devil is to steal our salvation. But the most awesome weapon that we have is also our salvation. It's Yehovah, our Elohim. We are covered by His never-ending forgiveness and eternal love. He will always be there to forgive us, pick us up, cheer us on, lead us, listen to us when we need an ear to hear. But without our salvation and deliverance, there's no hope. We would be better left to the wiles of the enemy and open for destruction without that. Right? But with it, He's our everything. He's behind us, in front of us, on the side of us, above us, below us. He's everything. Right? That's where our salvation is, which is our greatest weapon, which is also our best defense, which is also one of the best people to have on our sides to go out there and fight for us. Right? So I know I kind of wrapped that last one up a little bit, and we could go into like the totally different dimensions with all of this stuff here. But I promised Pastor Jeff I wouldn't go over time because that's his job. But the best thing that I can say to anyone out there is put on your armor. Get ready. If you are ready, that's great. Polish it up. Make sure you do your preventative maintenance checks and services on your armor, but also make sure you put it on every day, every second of every day. We'll sleep in it. I slept in mine. It's not hard, right? But always make sure that you're ready to protect yourself, and then ready to go on the offense. When you're not on the defense, you should be on the offense. That's just how it works when you're trying to win the battle. Okay? So, in closing, let's see. I don't know if I can close as good as Pastor Jeff. Do we have the closing? There's Kyle. Kyle's hiding. We're ready to do the closing thing. We got a song. Yeah, that's not my slide. What is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Well, let's bring the kids up first, and then we'll do that. I didn't know if we were doing a song. Okay. Oh, Pastor Jeff he's on the TV. Yeah, go for it. Hopefully he says I did a good job. You want to take that? Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Are we up? Hello, everybody. We miss you.
Hey, my friend. How are you?
Josh, you did a good job, Josh. I watched the whole thing. Worship team. Good job. My voice is a little out, so sorry about that. So everybody say hello to the church.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. Oh, I look like Mercy. Hello. We miss y'all.
Y'all doing good? We miss y'all. Do they all hear us, or are they all just looking at us, staring at us? Oh, okay.
Are they responding?
We've had a great service. We've been doing really good. Had some good services. Pastor Ben is here to testify of the goodness of the Lord. Tomorrow is Sunday at Pastor Ben's house, and then we have the afternoon off, and then we have Monday morning off, Monday all day off. We're off all day Monday, then we go back for Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we'll be making our way back to USA. So
No, 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks.
Oh, 2 more weeks. He wants us to stay 2 more weeks. And he wants Gracie to stay a month. Is Jimmy Dale there? Okay. So then I guess it's done then. She has to stay for a month. Say hello to your mom and dad.
Hi. Love you. Love you.
Oh, that's Ashley. Huh?
That's Ashley.
Hey, Ashley. Tough missionary. The anointing is upon her now. Hey.
Love you, Gail.
Mama Gail, where is she?
I thought always we could see them. I mean, y'all could see them. No, you live in
Hey, Mama Kay, how are you? How are you? Yes, we're trying to sign a deal, so I want you to know. Good to see you. You look good. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and he's losing his hair. The man is getting old. I don't know why. We will feed him with some fufu to make him strong.
Kathleen. I was getting some. Chuck did wonderful. Ashley did extreme. Josh did great. Hallelujah.
Hey, Sister Gail, how are you? Oh. It's okay. I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, I am. I'll be flying home by my United, so I might get to stay 2 weeks now. So.
I'm good. Just
Is everyone still there?
we miss you. We miss everybody.
All right, well, we love you all.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Have a good one, egg. Shalom, shalom. Love you
Love
too.
you.
Ooh, I love your hair. Yeah, you want to say something? Take it back. Okay. All right, I'll got them. Okay. I don't know where Mia went. Anyway. Okay, ready? All right. Father, we come to you today, Lord, and we just ask your blessings and your protection over each one of these children underneath this prayer shawl, Father, that you would guide their steps, Father, that you would put a burning desire to seek you in each one of them, Father, and that you would protect them against the attacks of the enemy and to remind them to put on all of their armor and weaponry that you've provided for them, Father. Help us as adults to always be the example that they should follow. And we just praise you and we thank you in Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen. Thank you for technology, because I would have had to sing that. I'm not good at singing. Jehovah, he who exists, kneel before you, presenting gifts, and will guard you with a hedge of protection. Jehovah, he who exists, will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards you, bringing order, and he will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. And Jehovah, he who exists, will lift up the wholeness of his being and look upon you, and he will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. May Jehovah grant all the desires of our hearts, fulfill all of our purposes and all of our petitions. May Jehovah hear from heaven, quickly answer all of our requests, save us in the day of adversity, and in the name of Yeshua the Messiah, defend us from our enemies, from poverty and from bondage. Shabbat Shalom.